Hey everybody, I'm Zach and I like movies, and I am here to talk about Mickey 17. This is the latest film from film Twitter favorite and god of South Korean cinema, Bong Joon Ho, who back in 2019 really made a name for himself, especially in the more mainstream Western audience sense with his Palme d'Or winning, Oscar sweeping, Big C Criterion approved modern classic Parasite, a movie so both dark and hilarious, but also precise and tragic of social commentary and class strife. That was felt so prescient and so really just so unique unto itself, and really is kind of one of the great modern examples of like the movie that you show to get people into foreign cinema, I think. But if only people could clear, as Bond said, could clear that little hill of subtitles. But now we finally, and what movie does he finally follow that up with? Something big, something broad, and something kind of stupid, which I wouldn't have it any other way. So this is Mickey 17, and it is not Bong Joon Ho in more his like more focused and subtle work like in Parasite or say Memories of Murder. This is much more Okja Bong Joon Ho, much more like The Host or Snowpiercer. It's which is fun. It's fun that all of his English language films are these like very like much more broad like genre films. And speaking of genre films, this is really a movie that is so many kinds of movie in one, which I can kind of understand why this was pushed back so much. Like it's a movie that's almost hard to market, depending on like what sort of angle you go to, because it's a movie that's also like sort of balanced, sort of like at times trying to balance out tone and also at war with itself in the tones and the kind of story it wants to say. But what story it is about Mickey Barnes, played by Robert Pattinson, and Earth is dying. He joins a space colony to go terraform and colonize this ice planet, and but he agrees. He's got some like loan sharks coming after him, and his buddy Stephen Yeun, and he decides to sign on to be an expendable, which is the kind of this program where he's basically a test rat, where anytime he dies, they just literally like print out a new one, like they 3D print a new Robert Pattinson, like quite literally like a like a paper printer would. Just to like slide him out on a conveyor belt, like. It's really good stuff. And so he's like gone through all these other like the tests that have like caught and like happenstance and misadventures that caused him to die, and we are now up to Mickey 17, where he's on this ice planet, and they think he dies, but then he actually makes it out, and he comes back, but oh no, there's 18 waiting in the same bed, and now like shenanigans are happening, and also there's like stuff with like his girlfriend who's like kind of into having two of them, and also there's the stuff with like the ship's captain, which is which is Mark Ruffallo, played by definitely not Donald Trump, and his wife, who's kind of got this Hillary Clinton haircut to her. Like there's not like like there's Bond said that he's not like deliberately referencing specific politicians, but like he has followers that have red caps. Like, come on, are we kidding here? But at the same time, there's also like a lot of other things, like not really other things happening, but there's so many different like sort of like modes and like genre and mood switches it goes through, which is not just like a staple of like what Bond does, and he's able to do so seamlessly in a lot of his other, even like his more mainstream Hollywood work. Yeah, it's just stuff that does with South Korean cinema. Like there's like genres really has no hard bounds, at least not in the same way that Hollywood sees it. Is it so? And now Bond, you see in here, he's clearly going for broke with a lot of this stuff. And I gotta say, the parts of this movie are are a lot better than the whole they create, which is kind of frustrating, but also still kind of fun to see. Like, the two main pieces of this movie, or at least the two modes that are sort of at war with that's kind of at war with itself, is that you have Mickey really in this like sort of like weird existential this sort of existential limbo of like is he like what of like his self-worth and how he sees himself as a person, and how his situation is sort of representative, it could be seen as representative, like, exploitation of the working class and a typical grunt. But like what's frustrating about Mickey's situation is that he's kind of, it's because he's the only expendable. So it's not like a class, it's not like a class, it's not quite so much a class strife thing, because like, yeah, everyone is kind of in the same boat, but like he specifically is like the only one who has this like certain like this certain station, which not only isolates him, tends to isolate him from other people, but also like makes him feel more mistreated than everyone else. So, and like, since there's not quite as much disparity between like, the top, the greedy politicians played by Mark Ruffallo and Toni Collette, who are very over the top. Like, your mileage is really going to vary with how much you get out of these two. I think like Mark Ruffalo, I'll get into the performances actually in a minute, because like that this like it doesn't quite work as sharply as like say Snowpiercer does, because like to compare this to Snowpiercer, like there's so much like forward momentum in the story, and even visually, like we're always tracking left to right the further we go along, and we get much more very clear, very obvious distinctions between the haves and the have-nots, and how things just sort of evolve as we get further and further along in the train. But here, it feels like there's like discussions about like, oh, it's like there's like pointing out things about like, oh, like the worker grunts of this colonizing ship, they have to like have food rations and like eat this like bullshit grub with like and again they were like point to the calorie rationing, and like you see like, and like it's making a point about like oh yeah, like the captain and his wife, they're like just having this lavish dinner, but like it feels like there's not enough of a distinction between like, oh, they're like hoarding the food. No, that's just like what everyone does. And also like in the world building that it does around like Mickey's like the expendable program, it has this like this sort of extended flashback in the front of the movie, where it explains how Earth is basically just kind of done finishing those questions about does a clone have a soul? Is a clone even a person? What makes that clone a person? And it feels weird that the movie sort of says that they've done that while still sort of asking sort of bringing up these sort of like questions about Mickey's personhood, and like characters kind of come up and keep asking him, what is it like to die? Just like either out of like a way to like put it down as like the lowest of the worker grunts, but also like just like a sort of emotional curiosity, and it feels like that's sort of like gonna build to like part of this crux of his character arc, both between Mickey 17 and Mickey 18, because those two are distinct characters between both between the two of them and in themselves, and like it does. I love that it does raise those questions. I love that kind of sci-fi. Like Mickey 7, like it's why I love Ghost in the Shell so much. Like Mickey 17 is not Mickey Barnes. He is the 17th simulacrum of Mickey Barnes. But it feels like the movie already, like the world the movie is a part of, or decided that he's not a person and not a clone, but also eventually sort of comes around to that. But it also doesn't feel like there's like enough confrontation of that there, because we're also doing a bunch of this like ham-fisted like social commentary, right? And you kind of see what I mean about this, like it. And I'm not mad that both are here. I think, and especially with filmmaker like Bong Joon Ho, I love that or even someone like Hideo Kojima. I love that that they do try to do stuff like this. They do try to do like this like philosophical science fiction, like moral, sort of like a moral personhood kind of philosophizing, or there's like that some moments of like dark tragic comedy with how like Mickey is sort of stuck in this like cycle of like living for this work and being an expendable person and dying over and over again, but we don't see enough of the other Mickeys that die. And there's like, again, the over-the-top and ham-fisted class satire, and he even throws in some big monsters in there with these like weird roly-poly like armadillo alien things that are actually really cool. And it's not like the goofy, the big goofy, I know writers who use subtext and they're all cowards social type of social commentary cannot also coexist with the sort of sci-fi ship of Theseus conundrum that is Mickey's existence. It's just that it feels like those two things are stacked on top of each other rather than meshing together. And again, I see the material, the potential of the material, and what Bond achieves with it. But what they come together as, they all just feel undercooked, and it's probably disappointing on that end, at least in the terms of the terms of quality for Bond's work. Even his more like broader stuff, like Okja. Okja is very like again very very ham-fisted, wink wink, and very like obvious about what it is, and very over the top in certain areas, especially the performances. But there's still like enough of it that comes together to form a coherent form, at least more than it does than Mickey 17 does. And that's not to say that it's a waste of your time. I actually don't think it's a bad movie, and I don't think any of the problems I'm having with it in terms of how sort of messy the story is, and how how the world building sort of undercuts either the like social messaging, or even like the sort of philosophical questions that it's sort of probing. It's just because all of like Bond's filmmaking is still like really exceptional. I think you'll still come away with like some really great, really fun sequences where like you have all these characters acting really over the top, Again, like your mileage will vary with how much you get out of like Ruffallo and Toni Collette here. I thought Ruffallo, he's sort of doing the same energy he had in Poor Things, but it feels like coming from the other way, where like I'm more repulsed by him instead of just being delightfully charmed by him. You know, like and Toni Collette, I thought she was pretty funny, but like her character was just like, again, really weird, and like I understood her deal less than I did Ruffalo. Robert Pattinson is he's really good here. He's in kind of top weirdo performance mode. Like the thing he does with his voice for both like our Mickey and how he like and Mickey 18, how he sort of distinguishes his performances in the physicality and how the other ones sort of behave, because there's a point where it points out like each new iteration of Mickey is sort of, there's like a personality aspect that is accentuated with each go over. Like they make mention that Mickey 8 was like manic depressive, and Mickey 18 is clearly much more confident and aggressive, while our Mickey is much more nebbish and sort of like wants to keep his head down and sort of ignore everything. Then just like whatever like lets him live longer, kind of thing. Very, very, very self-effacing. And I also really like Mickey's girlfriend, Nasha, played by Naomi Ackie. She's really fun because especially the more you see of her, like she's not just loyal, she's a yandere for Mickey. Which I also really like Steven Yeun as like his best friend that you absolutely cannot trust for your life. But it felt like it didn't have enough of him. But there's also and it was a little it's just I like a lot here, and a lot of what here I think is really fun. But yeah, the big picture just isn't to the standard of Bond, and overall feels mostly messy, but it's a fun kind of mess. Again, I do appreciate the swing that Bond takes here. It really is the kind of like sort of almost Gonzo. There's a Gonzo just throwing in everything but the kitchen sink kind of genre blockbuster that you can only get after just making a historic sweep at every award ceremony, like you did with Parasite. And again, I'm not mad I saw it. I just think, and I don't feel like I wasted my money or my time or anything. I mean, it could stand to lose 15 or 20 minutes, especially around the end. But I think it's still worth checking out. You're at least gonna find for how much stuff is in here. You're definitely gonna find at least something to enjoy about it. Like there's some Terry Gilliam stuff in here. There's a lot of There's a lot of silliness. There's a lot of great like really cool like a creature stuff that feels very Paul Verhoeven. There's some like, and there's also like really there's still great filmmaking from Bond with like how the camera moves and moves with the edit as well, and some really cool sound design too, like the way that like a lot of conversations just sort of like come in the three-dimensional space. Maybe not, certainly not my favorite Bond. Definitely the most mixed I felt about one of his movies, even more than his first, which isn't a bad. I don't think he's made a bad movie, but like this is probably my lesser favorite of his stuff, and that's kind of why I'm feeling a light to solid enough 6 for Mickey 17. And love Bong Joon Ho. Can't wait to see what he does next. Really, every release is just an event for me. I love him too much to not check him out anytime. But for now, that's it. I am Zach. I like movies. I have a lot more movies to watch, and I hope you watch movies too. What did you think of Mickey 17? And do you think it's gonna do you also think it's gonna be, one of those like weird kind of cult movies that has like a dedicated following in the future? But for now, that'll be it. I love movies. I hope you watch movies, and I will see you all next time. And I hope you all take care of yourselves too.